Well, good afternoon, everyone. We are so excited that you are here joining us for Leadership Now series. And first and foremost, before we introduce Tony to you, I just want to give a little heads up for the people who are on here, maybe for the first time or have heard us before. The reason why we started the Leadership Now is to truly bring thought leaders, role models, mentors, people who can inspire us and help provide us with tools and give us hope during this time. And so if you've missed any of our prior live webinars, you can go to drivenleadership.com and you can access them there. They're on our YouTube. And next week we have Adam Lyons. He is the business owner for RX Comfort out of Michigan, and he will be talking on the power of connection. So Tony Everett, you know, we go back, gosh, we were just talking about 2011-ish is when we first met. But prior to meeting, just a little history of Tony. He was born and raised in England or somewhere close to there. And when he was about 16 and a half, he went to the Royal Navy. And during the time in England, you played a lot of soccer. And what you had said was that playing soccer for you was fun. There wasn't a lot of adult interaction. And so through it, it taught you valuable lessons, ideas of how to build a team. You still have these amazing friendships. You joined the Royal Navy. And then in about 2001, you were able to come to the States working with a company in England, which then, you know, we'll get into a little bit of your history, but something happened along the way and you launched Pure Game in 2009. So just a little bit, give us a little bit of a snapshot on what brought you here and why Pure Game and what Pure Game is.
Yes, good morning, and thank you for having me on this awesome show.
Absolutely.
So moved to America in 2000. I was working for a company in England, security company, random that actually had a joint project in England. And I said, what would I do to work for you guys in America? He said, talk to me. I'm the sales manager and I've got an opening in Orange County. To which I said, great, where's Orange County? Because I had no clue. He brought me over. We interviewed. He hired me, and I came here in 2000. And his daughter played AYSO soccer, and he was the coach. And he invited me up to the field because, of course, I'm English. I've got an English accent. Must mean I know everything there is to know about the game of football. Of course, true about me, not true about all English people.
So just for those of you who do not know, football is actually soccer.
Soccer, yeah, we'll get the terminology there. So anyway, I went up and watched him do something with the kids on the soccer field. It certainly wasn't soccer related. I still to this day have no idea what he was trying to do. But so I stepped in and helped him, and that led to me getting involved with youth sport, AYSO, then club. And what really led to Pure Game was that decision to get into coaching it rather than playing it. Because through the coaching it, I found out that kids were overcoached. It was far too expensive. And there was too much emphasis on wins and losses and not nearly enough on just the fun of the game. Like you said, when I grew up, I just went and played. I just wanted to play with my mates, just wanted to kick the ball around. Some games there was 6 of us, sometimes there was of us. Who cared? Out and had some fun, and so I wanted to create something along those lines for the kids that I was interacting with out here.
Well, you know, and it's interesting you talk about the fun, right? Because we've seen organized sports for youth, and it's a lot like we've gotten away from fun, and there's so many expectations on children, and it's like we expect them to be picked up from colleges at 10, 11, 12 years old. Now they're actually being scouted. So starting Pure Game, wanting to have fun, what birthed that, and take us through a little bit of the journey of starting Pure Game.
Yeah. So I was involved with coaching the kids, and I realized just how overly competitive it was, and kids were being kind of treated like mini professionals. And so I realized something needed to change. I just didn't know what. I was lucky enough to take a trip to Nigeria. In fact, I took a handful of trips to Nigeria and some to Rwanda. And what I ended up doing was just kicking the ball around the kids out there. And it was in those moments of kicking the ball around, I couldn't speak their language, but I was able to communicate with kids game. And so I then realized and understood that I could take the game that I love and actually teach life lessons through the game. So that's where it started, was this combination of coaching club, my own kind of walk in the world of trying to become a better person and overcome some of the obstacles that I was facing. And then this trip to a foreign country where I was able to communicate and teach them some of the things through sport. And so I was like, why don't I combine all of that and make a youth sports program that actually focuses more on life skills and overcoming the obstacles we put in our path that prevent us from becoming our best, to help kids become who they are capable of becoming.
And at first it was more along the lines of working with high risk youth, correct?
Yes. So what actually happened was, I thought that we could work with the same kids that I was working with at club. But one parent actually said to me, I'll never forget this. He said, well, what's the point? That's never going to get my kid into college. And it kind of stopped me in my tracks. And I tracked back a little bit and thought, well, what's the best way of doing this? Ended up partnering with an after school program in Santa Ana. Again, it was random luck, but I went up there and ran a program up there. And that's when it really took off. And that's when I could really discover that it was these at-risk youth who appreciated the message that I was delivering, but loved the ability to play the game and become active at the same time.
So fast forward, we met you, I want to say it was around 2011. I went to a forum, it was called Ethical Edge. It was a breakfast meeting, and they were honoring you as a organization in the community that made a difference. And you got up to talk, and I'd never met you before, and you're sharing your story in your heart, and literally tears are pouring down my face. And there was something in my heart that said, you're going to meet that man, and there's going to be something that you're going to be connected with. And it wasn't that particular moment that day, was one of the next moments that I went. I think it was like 3 months later. And I walked up to you and I gave you my card and I said, Tony, I'm supposed to meet you. And we had breakfast or coffee at Starbucks. And I remember giving you an intermetrics, and you end up going to the Forge, and I had Eric meet you, and just our paths in the heart. Eric got to work with you. He was one of your board members for a few years. And you sent Octavio and Danny, who were your at-youth risk that you were working with, to our program. And to watch the growth in them has been absolutely amazing. And then you sent, it was his brothers, Pete,
yep.
And he actually broke the cycle, and he was the first son out of the family who got to go to college and graduate. So living that dream, and you have someone who is a parent from the, not the at-youth risk, they're saying, that's not going to help my kid get into college, but you do help kids get into college.
And one of the things that we believe at Pure Game, and this is really the starting point for me, it wasn't that I had to overcome kind of life hardship obstacles. I had to overcome my own internal struggle, my own internal narrative struggle. So I never believed in myself. I always thought I was unworthy. I never thought I could become successful. And so I had to really work hard to overcome these issues in my head. And we that in the youth that we serve, it's not necessarily that they're underserved or at risk. It's the same story that most of us have. I'm an imposter. I'm not good enough. I'll never make it. No one cares. No one listens to me. This is the stories that we tell ourselves that hold back, and it's prevalent within the youth today, especially, and within the youth that within these inner city areas. So the likes of Danny, Octavio, I mean, they never thought that they could be anything other than what their community and culture told them. So it's coming alongside these kids and saying, no, you're brilliant. You've got what it takes. and then unleashing that power to let them go into the world and make a difference themselves. Yes.
And you're saying, you know, we're all that way, not just kids, not just the youth, it's adults. It is whatever environment that we surround ourselves with, whatever belief system that we've been brought up with. When we're willing to look at it for what it is, take off the mask and go, no, no, I'm worth something. And it's people like you that provide hope, not just for the youth, but it also provides hope for adults. And looking at the Pure game, it just morphed. It went in from working with them, you got into school programs before and after recess. I'll never forget, there was one time that we in Landon, Kellen, Amber, we all went on the field, and you had those big soccer balls, or not
Bubbles.
The bubbles.
The bubbles.
I never laughed so hard in my life, which is, you know, goes into the power of play, that we can teach the youth, whether it's our children or kids that we work with, and even as adults, the power of play unleashes something miraculously.
It does. It breaks down the barriers that hold us from becoming the best. You said it, as alike kids, we all have this struggle with what the culture tells ourselves, what our teachers and parents tell us. And so we hold this internal narrative, these labels that we put on ourselves, and that kind of restricts us. Well, the power of play breaks down those barriers, helps us laugh, and helps us a little bit to embrace this, you know, alter ego almost, that we are then able to see a glimpse of who we could potentially and possibly become. And that's the challenge, right? How do we sit there and look deeply at ourselves, take off the mask, and say, no, this is who I really am. This is the passion that I have. This is the love that I have in my life. And this is what I'm going to do. And regardless of whether I fail, whether I fall over, whether this becomes hard, I'm going to commit fully to becoming my best self. You know, and that's ultimately what Pure Game is trying to do. We do this with our champions. Octavia is now 14 of us. We do it with them. We speak into their lives to a degree that says, you've got this. You've got all of these skills and abilities. Now, can you take these skills and abilities and put them in front of kids and guide them and help them come out of their shell so they can understand their own internal giftedness, their abilities and their talents that we all have. Everyone has them, and they're all very different. Right. But it's thing into them.
As we continue talking here, because there is so much power in play. And, you know, throughout this whole pandemic, we see through the adult perspective of what's happening and how it's impacting our lives. Yet you get to see through the perspective of our youth how it's impacting them. So how would you say, what do you see within them? What's their challenges? What are they struggling with right now?
You bring up a great question. The whole social distancing is the biggest impact on these kids. The fact that they can't go interact with their friends and people, fact that they're kind of stuck. When you think about yourself as a kid, much of the time you get your identity, your feel, the friends that you interact with. Well, suddenly that's now taken up, and suddenly you now can't interact with these people. Where are you going to get your identity from? How are you going to find yourself within that time? So the biggest impact is social isolation, not being able to be with friends. But then the power of play, not being able to get out enough. The challenge. I've got two kids, mine 12 and 9. And when this started, my wife and I went and invested in a trampoline simply because we wanted a place where our girls could just go play, go bounce, go have fun. Best investment ever during this COVID-19 thing. So do you get out there and play with them? I do sometimes. Not a lot, actually. Scared of trampolines. I think I'm going to break an arm.
So Eric has a really funny story about a trampoline, but that'll be for another video.
Yeah.
Right. So what would you do to encourage parents? So you talk about the perspective and knowing from the adult perspective and also the kids' perspective, these parents now, they're homeschooling their kids.
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones that are stuck doing everything. They're the coach, the mentor, the teacher. How can they do something when their kids are just like, how can they interact differently?
Yeah, it's another great point, because so when you think about kids, most of the time our focus is on their school performance. How are you doing at school? How are your grades? What's going on? And so parents channel their energy into their schoolwork and almost get their own identity from this fact of, well, my kids are doing great at school, or my kid is our athlete, right? Whichever way that's going. Well, that's taken away. One of the things that I believe to be true in this time is mental, social, and emotional health. That's such more important. Almost take your foot off the gas when it comes to schoolwork, right? It's me wrong, but almost take your foot off the gas as far as the demands for grades, and actually now think, well, how are you doing? Are you still communicating with your friends? Are you still somehow in communication there? How are you feeling today? Go ask that question of your kids, and don't just blow it off. Sit down and actually listen. How are you feeling? What does that mean? How can I help? Just be a sounding board for your kids. I think it's such an important aspect to try and create a stronger emotional connection with these kids during this time.
I was talking with a lady, and she said that a lady had asked her a question. So when you think about when you were a child, your memories, the best memories that you had, or the times that were the hardest, was it all about the academic side? And she said, no. Mm-hmm. She goes, during this time, your kids are not going to remember, oh, I need to do my schoolwork. It was that mom played, dad played, that I had connection. And there's an opportunity to really reset and look at things in a different light, which brings me to, with your team, you say you have a team of 14, but you have all these programs that you were running, and it is face-to-face, and all of a sudden you're stopped. And, state of California, the laws are very different. So how are you connecting with your teams?
Yeah. One thing I had about the kids thing first is just my oldest daughter got into cooking. Embrace the other stuff that they can do, cooking, boring, music, whatever it is. Embrace that stuff. Let them go with that. So with one of the things that we've taught as a team during this whole COVID thing, lockdown, is we are actually communicating more. So how do I engage them more as a team? We have a deliberate policy actually check in socially and emotionally. How are you feeling? How's everyone doing? What's going on? What's the highs of this week? What are the struggles this week? And listening, creating a safe space to share. And then as a leader, I've kind of stepped, this is going to sound bad, but I've stepped back and then do their thing, right? I haven't got in the way. And I'm just saying, here's the challenge. Here's an obstacle that needs to overcome. Go for it. What have you got? And letting them be creative and come up with their own thing has been the best thing I've done. Awesome to watch them be creative, bring their own gifts and talents to it. And then what it's created a remote recess program where we've created video content of our field champions playing games at home and all of that good stuff, a social and emotional content. And we're sharing this with all of our school partners. We've created a Tiff and Tony show that's helping teens kind of with life lessons. We've got a Friday challenge that's putting challenges out to the world about, like last week, doing something scary. And we've got all of this content that's being created. You mentioned Octavio. He's now doing live class sessions via video, something he would never have done before. But here he is doing this stuff now. So getting out of the way and letting them do their thing, but deeper communication and more meaningful, intentional communication with the team is where it's at.
How far you have come. Like I just look at you, Tony, and over the last 7-8 years, to be able to just delegate to, and it's crazy because as a leader, once we let go of the reins, you start to empower other people to come up alongside, and they get to step into their gifts.
But it's scary, right? It scares me every day, where I just go, okay, what are you going to do today, guys? But they perform every day, every week. They have been nothing but awesome and inspirational for me.
So what is your biggest lesson during this whole time?
Biggest lesson. So this whole time is to be adaptable, to be flexible, to actually embrace the fact that there are many opportunities in this time and coming out of this time, right? It's not well, I've got to do that, I can't do that anymore. What if we help both of those opportunities? So for us, example, we could get back into the field time. Do we do that or not? Well, there's a lot of kids out there that want to be on the field, but can we do it? So do we drop that right now, or do we focus on the remote recess right now? Well, what if we hold both of them in place and look at both of them, and then be adaptable with our thought and flexible with our on both of those ideas, and see what comes of it? And when we hold both of them in that place, some amazing creative thinking comes from it. And so we're looking to get back onto the field, but in a safe way, and changing the rules of that game of soccer that we all love, or some of us love.
Well, and what you're talking about, it's the and, so many times we look at this or that, we have to do this, it's either or. And in this time, you're really looking at, well, how can we create an and? And
yes.
in the and is where so many different ideas and creativity shows up.
Yes. And so that's my biggest lesson, creating the and.
Okay. So I have a different question what's not off topic based on what we shared, but we have coaches on here from the college athletic department world, and they're struggling right now because their programs got shut down. They can't recruit. What can you suggest to them as they get back in to connect even more with their players?
Well, there's a couple of things that I would suggest and that's I think we need to rethink what sports looks like. So if we go back to the traditional model and the traditional way of doing sports, we're going to get stuck. And so we need to then pivot and change to an and type model and bring in some different ways of doing the same sport, but in a different way. And making something special of that, and then celebrating the changes that could come from the changes that we create. Right? Celebrate. I don't know. We're thinking of creating what we're going to call box soccer. It's going to be very different. There's going to be no physical connection there, but we're going to be on the same field playing in different boxes. Change the rules. Make something up, and then celebrate it and have fun with it.
Well, and that's with anyone in life, right? Whether we have our children, whether we have a team that we're running, is we get to recreate the rules and celebrate the wins.
Yes. And when colleges start to come back, and when their athletes start to come back, they're going to want to get back to physical activity, but they want to get back to the social aspect more than anything. So break that social connection and do something socially that can include some of the sporting activity. You don't need to create superstar athletes. You need to create superstar people.
Oh, I love that. I love that. As we are wrapping up this, if you have questions for Tony and want to get into specifics on ideas, whether it's with your own child, with your team, whether it's at work or a sports team, raise your hand and I'll bring you in. And as they're doing that, just for you, Tony, what message, like what is your, if this is your soapbox and you get any message out to people, what's on your heart right
now? So I think what I just said, the changing of our mentality going into youth sport, academics, come off the performance side of things. Stop getting kids to perform so early Let them have fun. Let them enjoy the game. Let them enjoy school. Let them be small human beings, right? And stop treating them like adults. Let them have fun with life.
So how are you having fun?
That's a great question, because I've been working through that, and there's a couple of things that have come up for me. First, how much my identity was connected to sport, specifically soccer. So I've had this whole identity crisis. So addressing that, and then suddenly this weekend I was like, I got no hobbies, and really getting into a funk about it. And so finding other hobbies to do. I took up practicing magic, practicing some magic tricks. I bought a bike, and I'm going to go biking and get outside on that, running. But the need to be physical and to be physically active is where I'm at. But learning new stuff and wanting to try new things. That's really how I'm at now, having fun.
Well, and it goes into the change cycle. So we had this huge change, and as leaders of organizations, it's like, what do I do? And what I've heard from everyone across the board is, as a leader, if you run an organization or a team, you don't stop. Like some of your team members may have, or your kids now are home, but we're going 24/7, and it's so hard to find this balance. And it's so important that we find the balance, that we figure out. And what, we talk about your identity. So many of us, we find it's our role, and right, that's our identity. But there's so much more. And as we adapt, as we change, we get to find out even more of who we are.
Yeah, and you bring up, most of us are scared to actually step into that, finding out who we are, because then that could actually ruin who we think we are, right? And suddenly I've worked so hard to build up this persona, and now I'm going to destroy that for something new. That scares half of us to death.
Sure.
But it's being okay with and accepting, this could bring out a new part of me. And again, creating the and. I don't have to destroy the old persona. I can keep that and add something to it. It's not a this or that. It's a this and that, I think.
Well, and you talked earlier about the imposter syndrome, right? It's like, in this time and age with all of us, we all are learning something new, which is powerful because it's a fresh start for all of us. And so I think to be more authentic and just owning it, even with our teams going, man, I don't know, I'm stuck. What do you think? And the power, so I go back to the power of play. It unlocks the creativity side of our brain. That's scientific proof. The more we can play, if we're stuck, if we can play and go, okay, now let's go back in and let's figure something else out. You will have new ideas, a new way of doing it, and we don't have to be stuck in this little box.
Yeah, for sure. And play takes different, it doesn't have to be physically active play. As a family, we've decided that we are going to watch the entire Marvel series. And so from start to finish, we're watching all Marvel movies. And then when we're done with that, we're going to go find a different series to go watch. So we're going to have some fun with that. That's play.
Sure. And Tony has
and the kids love it
in his life, his wife and his 2 daughters. So you get to do girl things. Right?
Yes, for sure. And that's my dog, Charlie. Hey.
What is it with dogs? When we had Brad on here, he had his dog and left little.
I was watching that. That was funny. Mine just barks. It's awesome.
So I'm going to launch a poll just on feedback. We would love your feedback through this. And, again, I just want to thank you, Tony, for being here. If people wanted to get involved with Pure Game right now, what can they do? How can they help?
That's a great question. There are several things that we look for. First of all, there's the Tiff and Tony show, shameless plug. It's actually another kind of interview process, but what we're trying to do is create life skills for kids, create this platform where we can teach kids, hopefully, some of the lessons that adults get from a video session like this. And so we want people in professions that can help kids. tell their story about how they got to it. So if you want to be on that, then there's the Tiff and Tony show. There's professional help. We're looking for all sorts of arenas. We're looking to create a whole new app. Yes, an app to deliver our programming. And that was your wonderful husband's idea. Thank you very much, Eric. But if we create it, then suddenly we can engage kids in a very different way and in a place where they live, like on electronics on their phones. And so there's that type of stuff. But even just coming up to say hi and volunteering at some of our programs. And when I say volunteering at some of our programs, we create videos that we send to our schools that they send to their kids. Some of these videos are workout videos. So Brad, if you're watching this, do a workout video that lasts 2 to 3 minutes that we can send to a school. Job done.
Wow. Are you still doing the letter process for the kids?
Yes, there is that. God, I totally forgot about it. There's so many other things that are going on. But yes, you could. That's a great opportunity for people to get involved. If you could write an encouraging note to your younger self, whether it be 8, 16, whatever age it is, you could write an encouraging note to yourself. What would it say? What would you include in that note? And then go write that note, right? You actually write yourself a note. And then what we do is we go deliver it to a kid in our program who needs some encouragement. And those letters are received so well within the kids because it's written by you, so it's meaningful, right? And it's received by the kid in a way that it's almost speaking to them. So that's an awesome opportunity for people to get involved.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a great way.
And it gives them hope because there's so many people, well, especially some of the kids that you work with, that they don't have a lot of connection. And so to have someone say, take the time and write a letter and just say, hey, this is ideas or suggestions, and you're going to be okay. You can be okay.
Yeah. Yep, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I just want to thank you again for being on here. I just adore you, Tony. And
thank you.
Whatever we do to continue to help and support you, you just mean the world to us. Really, really proud of you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome. And next week we have Adam Lyons again, and it's going to be Wednesday because of Memorial Day at 11:30. And he's going to have a powerful message on the power of human connection. So have a great afternoon, everyone.